As part of a massive revitalization plan, the City of Toronto expropriated several buildings from its downtown core. After 7 years of planning and construction, Yonge-Dundas Square was formed.
The intent is to give this part of the city a new heart, a new destination that will spark a certain image in people's minds, much like Piccadilly Circus does in London or Times Square does in New York. It's the place to be.
Buildings were actually removed to make a public space. That never happened. It's an amazing act that the city made to do that.
Groups can come and rent the space. You can start your demonstration here and march to City Hall or march to police headquarters, march to Queen's Park. It's a space that Torontonians have the opportunity now to embrace.
I like the clean, crisp, elegant look of things, how everything has been thought through. The materials are great. They're top quality materials. I love the benches. I think the benches are verging on being mini sculptures. I think it's just a very elegant place.
Debates followed the completion of the square. Some criticized the design and the lack of greenery integrated into the space, while others protested the regulations implemented by the city to control behavior in the square.
I think the assumption here that people will warm naturally to what is ultimately a very hard and very minimal space, it's a difficult one.
There's one thing we need to be adding to the city. It's some more trees and grass. The reason they can't put tall trees in the square is because it would block the view, the sightlines of the billboards and the TV screens.
I actually called one journalist and said, no, it's not. I mean, there isn't grass there because it's a square. You know, like, if you just understand that, you'll be a lot further ahead than trying to figure out why isn't it a park. So anyway, I think that's the difference, and it's something that we're just kind of figuring out now.
The unfortunate thing is that there are all sorts of regulations and all kinds of new ideas which are not acceptable within the Canadian context of public space. New ideas about how you load the space up with lots of security guards and regulate people's behavior. These are ideas that are borrowed from some of the privately funded parks in the States, for instance.
What's the problem?
One incident in particular, which added fuel to the critics' fire, was the banning and fining of a protester who drew a chalk peace sign on the square's granite floor.
After I drew the peace sign, IntelliGuard security came up to me, told me to leave. They called the police, they banned me, the police fined me, and they just forced me off the square.
Why do we have a problem with chalking? It's a question of the extent of it. If somebody just draws a little bit of chalk and then takes responsibility for cleaning it off, we have no problem with that. The problem would be when you want to have 25, 30 people come here and draw chalk all over the square and then just leave it behind and rely on us to clean it up.
From a legal point of view, I think the city's got to be very careful about trying to restrict people's use of that space. It's one thing if they're holding an event, but when the square is sitting empty, then I think the public has a right to use it.
If this is the way they want to run the square, that's fine, but just don't call it a public square. We have private places everywhere where you're not allowed to do certain things, and that's essentially what this is. So I'm not against the square, I'm against the idea that this is public when it's actually a further erosion of what used to be public.
Yonge and Dundas, there's a certain motion and intensity here, which we think is great, you know. So the idea of the square wasn't to slow people down per se, but give them a kind of space in which they can have some choice and move.